Hi, I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to Finextra TV. Today we're kindly joined by Fiorella Carvajal from World Bank. Hi Anna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. Now, we've already spoken to the Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance about their study into the impact of Covid-19 on global fintech, a study that you at World Bank and the World Economic Forum have teamed up to support. So we're going to be talking a bit about that today, but it'd be great if you could start things off by setting the scene and telling us where we are with fintech firms and SMEs.
Of course, Hannah. First of all, let me tell you that at the World Bank, we believe that fintech and fintech firms have a key role to play in financial inclusion. They first started providing basic financial services to the unbanked population, for example, payment services. But now they are starting to have a key role in expanding access to finance for consumers and SMEs. And this is a very important link that we want to emphasize.
All right, so how can they expand access to finance for the SMEs, and why is it so important to support growth level during COVID-19?
Yes. Well, there are many ways in which fintech firms can do this. Let me first explain two of you. First, there are some fintech firms that act as online lenders, lending on their balance sheet. But there are also other type of fintech firms that basically work as intermediaries, putting together the SMEs with investors that are willing to invest in these SMEs, for example, by buying a portion of loans or by investing directly in the companies, such as in equity crowdfunding platforms. And what we are seeing is that these type of solutions of fintech firms not only exist in advanced jurisdictions, but also in emerging markets. And they are starting to have an important role in providing financing to them. And to give you just an example, in 2017 in Chile, out of the total of loans provided in the platforms, more than 50% were given to clients that were on bank or underbanked. And this is crucial for financial inclusion. Now, you also asked me why is it important to keep these levels of financing for
Right.
SMEs during the pandemic? Well, because SMEs are a key engine of growth and employment in countries. And just in emerging markets, formal SMEs constitute about 45% of employment and 33% of GDP. So they are really key for the economies of our countries to go on. And the pandemic is hitting them very hard. Many countries are establishing programs, support package for SMEs, but these programs cannot go indefinitely. So we need to ensure that alternative mechanisms of finance remain available to them. And that's why our work in fintech and in ensuring that fintech is available is so crucial.
Well, it's fascinating. And you've sort of answered my next question a little bit already there. And coming back to the research, why is it significant that World Bank is involved in the CCAF report? And how are you getting information about how different fintechs are affected across the globe?
Yeah. Well, let me first say that as you were mentioning, there are different types of fintech. The universe of fintech is not monolithic. They provide different type of services from payments to financing, and therefore the COVID pandemic might not have affected them in the same way. So a key point for us is to precisely understand that dynamic. And one way that we do that is through our engagement, through our programs of technical assistance with countries. But we wanted to take this effort one step further, and this is where the partnership with the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance comes into play. Because what we are trying through this survey is to get information on a larger number of firms and through standardized questions that would allow us to get more of that granularity of how different fintechs are being affected. And just to give you an example of how important it is, this survey will allow us to get information on four basic areas. First, how fintech firms are being affected in their performance in the COVID pandemic. Second, what is the response that they are having to the pandemic? For example, what type of programs, differences in the programs are they developing? Third, what type of policy support would they need from policymakers to continue providing their services? And also, in what way can they help governments to channel their support to the population and to the SMEs? And finally, what type of operational challenges they have? So we expect that this survey will provide us this information that then we can use to tailor the advice that we provide to countries.
Sure. Well, I think it's fair to say the survey is going to be a great help, because we're definitely looking at a period where fintechs are going to be seeking advice going forward. But my next question then is, how can recovery advice for fintechs in different countries be tailored to them?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. First of all, for the audience there, as you know, one of the key roles of the World Bank is to provide technical assistance to countries. And what this means is that we provide policy advice to countries in different aspects of the financial sector. And in this particular juncture, we are helping countries to assess what is the best way to move forward in the recovery phase and what type of solutions need to be available to ensure that there's financing for the economy and for SMEs. And in that context, the first thing to say is that there's not a one-size-fits-all roadmap that we can apply in every country, because country context matters. But having a good understanding of how fintech are operating in different countries, what is the enabling environment that they need to have, what are the obstacles that they are facing, is the first step for us to compare, contrast, and have a policy dialogue with authorities about the policy changes that they need to make to ensure that fintech firms can operate. And let me give you a concrete example, just a real example. Just in January, February of this year, we started to advise an African country in how to use capital markets and market-based financing to expand financing for SMEs. And looking at peer jurisdictions and with the backdrop already of the COVID pandemic, what we advised this country, one of the key recommendations was to accelerate the development of a legal and regulatory framework for crowdfunding platforms. Because in that country, fintech firms that try to provide access to finance for SMEs cannot operate today. It's not a legal activity. But in addition to that, we provided additional recommendations on the need for the country to accelerate the digitization of the economy, because only by doing that, other mechanisms of finance that fintech firms can provide could flourish. So this was very tailored advice, but again, looking at what other countries are doing. In the context of COVID, having the information that would come from that survey would allow us to see if we need to tweak more our advice in terms, for example, of additional obstacles that would need to be removed to ensure that fintech firms can operate and can be part of the solution going forward in terms of ensuring that SMEs have access to finance.
It's fascinating, and I can't wait to see the results from the survey and also speak to the World Economic Forum next week to get the full picture. But Anna, really, thank you so much. It's been so informative, and we'll leave it there today. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And I just want to end this conversation by highlighting the importance that as many fintech firms as possible fill out this survey, because as I said, it's a win-win situation. It's information that we can use to inform authorities to make sure that fintech activities and firms can operate in different emerging and developing countries, of course, under a proper regulatory and supervisory environment. Thank you, Hannah, for the invitation.
Brilliant.